you had drawn sort of a very loose parallel with Freud's id ego and superego, and I found it. I mean, your description of it today is sort of a different facet that I find really interesting. I'm not saying other, but like, oh, I can see how these relate, and then that makes the whole thing much more interesting, more complicated, more
Mm,
detailed. Um, where you have I mean, the id and the monster, pretty clear.
mm.
Um, Not too much question there. But then the ego, is the ego the man or is the ego the lion?
I think the man, because the
Okay.
superego, I think, would be the lion.
That's interesting because the man being very rational and the lion being um
Kind of
both
socially
both socially
oriented.
and but then
Mm.
also like I very much get like military or political um victories, and oftentimes there's a lot of emotion in that.
Yeah.
Um I'm thinking modern day like sports events,
Mm, yeah.
um, which is definitely not super ego territory, but there is something about a lion, um, that has in the West been kind of regal, royal,
Mm,
uh, and historically speaking, kings were sort of the ordering structure of the society. And so
mm,
the lion
mm,
kind of standing in for the ordering structure of the society makes sense.
mm,
Um, but the super ego being emotional doesn't. And so we're like
mm,
this the fascination for me is we are almost like comparing two different rainbows or totem poles or some sort of
mm,
broken structure that is meant to
mm,
delineate the same thing, and it's a
mm,
label structure,
mm.
but they're not quite one to one,
Yeah.
and yet they're describing the human soul or the human psyche. So we can sort of take that, and anywhere I think that there's a mismatch, it becomes an interesting point of inquiry as far as like, oh well, what is the hierarchy, or how does one blend into the other? What is the relationship?
Mm.
um so I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read much Freud. I just have read about him and I have some idea of those three parts. But yeah, as you were talking, I was thinking how more they seem different. I mean, I know it seems like Plato emphasizes the man part as like in another dialogue, he talks about how you can have like a chariot. He talks about the soul as like a charioteer. And so the charioteer is like that rational part, but then the two horses are like the appetitive and the honor seeking part. And he extends this, I think this is in the Phaedrus, to where, it's a good analogy because it's like you're trying to go in one direction, but if one horse is going in one direction, the other horse is going the other direction, and you're sort of the charioteer is confused as to what to do or where they want to go. That's like a good sort of analogy. But if everybody's going in the same direction, it's this idea that you can kind of progress in life. And he turns it into this whole big myth where you can go into heaven and even beyond heaven into the pure like realm of being and intelligence. So like things that are discernible only to the intelligence and beyond the senses. And he said that's where the gods live and everything beyond heaven and stuff. But anyway, yeah, I wonder one thing is I sort of feel like, I don't know, maybe Plato is more optimistic or sort of he seems to emphasize the very the possibility of the soul to really transcend uh I don't know, to transcend itself, let's say that. And I thought Freud was sort of more like balancing things so you can sort of be regularly unhappy, like a balanced human being, and not like neurotically unhappy and totally dysfunctional or something like that. I feel like Freud doesn't have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but he doesn't nearly have that sense of, and maybe this is why Jung like broke from him in general. To me, it seems like Freud doesn't have, he's at heart like a doctor and just still trying to diagnose the patient and just to like be sort of normal and not sort of neurotic and crazy. But doesn't seem to have the sort of spiritual vitality, this Empyrean kind of hope that Plato has, that eventually kind of made its way into Christianity, with this hope of this eternal, this union with divine love, with eternal life, and things like that. I just, it almost seems comical to think of Freud somehow being made into some kind of divine figure, or I mean, not him, but his thinking being made into some sort of like really transcendent spirituality.
Yeah, yeah.